Views and opinions expressed in this podcast, Spiritual Danger Close, are solely those of the guests, hosts, and contributors. They do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of any institution, organization, or affiliation, past, present, or future, associated with the host. Content provided in these episodes is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It is not intended to serve as professional advice or guidance. Listeners are encouraged to seek appropriate professional advice and consult relevant sources before making decisions based off of information discussed in this podcast. The host reserves the right to grow, learn, and develop, such as ideas and beliefs and opinions shared in the past episodes may not necessarily be held in the future. The content of this episode is subject to change and evolution in accordance with the host's personal journey and understanding. Listeners are encouraged to engage critically with the content presented and to form their own opinions based on careful considerations and research. Thank you for tuning in to Spiritual Danger Close. Here is the latest episode. Hi, this is Logan with Spiritual Danger Close podcast. Normally episodes and narrations of my blogs, which come from my thoughts on a particular subject and learning what it means to live spiritual danger close. Requires having an open conversation with knowledgeable individuals. Today's episode reflects that idea and hopefully helps you with your spiritual discipline. Today's speaker was requested by me or those who follow the blog or podcast. If there is a conversation you would like to hear or wanted to comment on today's episode, please do so. If you're interested in coming on the podcast or wanted to comment on the episode, speak to me personally, you can message info@spiritualdangerclose.blog. Again, info@spiritualdangerclose.blog. Thank you and hope you enjoyed today's episode. I'm going to get this recording. And welcome, Barry. Thank you for coming on.
Nice to be here. Thank you very much for having me.
It is really exciting. And I didn't know that Diamonds to Dust, you're almost one of those MySpace deathcore bands. You're really close. You've been around for a minute.
Yeah, what you call it? Or at least I've been in the scene for a very, very long time. And what you call it? I've been inspired by a lot of those, not really the deathcore era per se, but a lot of like the scene bands, Under Oath and, From First to Last and bands of that nature. I grew up in that era.
Yeah, it's there's so much music to like, and what inspires people is completely random. So It's interesting. One of these days I'll find a deathcore band that was inspired by ska.
That would be interesting. Ska is one of those styles of music that I don't listen to, but if it comes on, I wouldn't change the channel. A lot of it is pretty interesting.
I joke and say that, but do you know about Hard Look? Christopher Johnson?
Yes.
He has his other band, Ripped Up, and it's kind of like a reggae punk rock, and it's kind of got a ska feel to it. So, well, I guess I technically already had somebody on inspired by ska. So, but
hey man.
So I got 13 fun questions to ask. We may or may not get through them all, so we'll see how it goes. We were hoping for more of the band to join, but some stuff came up, and that's okay. I hope they're doing well. And let's get into it. Diamonds to Dust. How did that happen?
I was the one who started the band along with my brother Melvin. It is a very long and uninteresting stories, but to make it short, we were always into metalcore. We had started a band called It's Never Tomorrow, and that band was not doing well at all. So we started Diamonds to Dust as, just as a like post-hardcore type of rock feel and just to do. And that started to taking off. So we were just like, all right, well, since we're gaining traction with this band, which was supposed to just be a studio band, nothing serious, with the members, with the original members, and, they all left due to creative differences. We were just like, you know what? Forget It's Never Tomorrow. Let's do Diamonds to Dust. And let's just keep going forward with that until we made it here today. If you look at our bio, you'll see that we had a long, long list of people coming and going out of the band. You know, me and my brother and our guitar player Brandon are like the only original members. You know, everybody else is come and gone. You know, and then Christian has been in the band for like the last 5 years. So if you want to say he's pretty much an original member, you can at this point, because I believe he's the longest vocalist we've had in the band.
That's something interesting about deathcore, and I think it's just because of the way the music is. Everyone's replaceable in deathcore, and so the joke, the oldest member of the band is the band name.
Yeah, pretty much. You know, and then you always get the people who's like, well, they should have just changed the name. You know, it's not the same band anymore. I'm like, please. I'm like, me and Melvin are the creators of it. So as long as we're in the band, that's all that matters. You know, granted, we don't want Brandon and Christian going anywhere, but if they had decided to leave, you know, as long as we're still there, since we're the ones who write most of, or I'm the one who writes most of the music until as of recently, that's all that really mattered.
That's interesting. For the band members that were cycling out, it's always like people are trying to find a bassist. But now everyone plays bass, and so it's like, hey, anybody play drums? I have heard
Which is funny because.
Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Oh no, I was going to say I had to go on bass because we couldn't find a bass player.
I mean, if it's good enough for Keanu Reeves, I mean.
I mean, you know, if John Wick will do it, then
yeah.
And I don't mind it as long as it keeps the band progressing. I'm fine with being on bass.
Yeah. I do intend picking up instruments myself after I move back to the U.S. And I think I'm going to just do bass, just because the chord and patterns you play are far simpler, and I don't think I'm as talented musically to pick up a guitar and try to solo riffs. I'll just use a computer program and MIDI program it or outsource it. I'm currently working with a couple people right now on that, and I don't know if the bass was good or whatever. It's just kind of crazy how it is.
Listen, I'm not gonna lie, but hey, depending on what type of metal or deathcore that you're doing, you know, bass can be just as intricate as the guitar. Some of the songs that we're writing now, I'm just like, man, I'm like, I gave up guitar to be on bass to play simpler riffs, and I'm still shredding on the bass. I'm like, this is, but I guess as long as the people enjoy it, I'm like, all right, I guess I can practice for a few hours a day. It's not going to kill me, even though it probably will.
Yeah, it's definitely needed. Everyone looks at the guitarist or vocalist in rock and metal, but the bassist is the one keeping everybody in tune. To include the drummer, sometimes you notice the drummer like, oh, okay. It's interesting. So you talked about coming together, going metalcore to deathcore, post-hardcore, and transitioning to it. When did the band kind of become a Christian metal band?
So we've always had Christian elements from the initial start of the band. We just never called ourselves a Christian band due to not every member being a Christian. So me and Melvin were Christians. We were raised as Christians. And the other members either were maybe, I guess, Christian adjacent, where they're just like, oh, yeah, I believe in God, but they're really not into it, or they just, you know, were atheists or whatever the other beliefs were. So the revolving members, we didn't do it. Once we hit our third album, we had a female singer by the name of Virginia and her husband, Ty. Once they joined the band, we were all Christians, had the same faith. And that's when we announced, now we are truly a Christian band, because, you know, we were able to finally show our beliefs. Every member had the same belief. We were all on the same page about that. So I'd have to say we went from like a Christian adjacent band to a Christian band in around, I want to say 2017. I think that sounds right. We released our first album in 2014. So it took a few years to get there.
When that happened, did you notice any kind of difference in the way you approached music or the way people approached your music?
No, not really. To be honest with you, most people, they didn't even know we were a Christian band, especially when we became more metalcore, or when we became a deathcore band. People didn't know until they started like looking up the lyrics, or they seen us live, and they'd hear us say something about God or Christ. Then it'd be like, oh, you guys are Christian. Well, we'd never know because we don't preach on stage. At least my belief is I don't need to go up there and evangelize per se, just because the music speaks for itself. The message is not hidden. We're not one of those Christian bands where it's just like, all right, we'll just use he and him, and it's like, no, it's very apparent. So we believe the music like speaks for itself. There's no need for us to go up there. And most people who listen to us, they know it. We just released a song called Child of the King. I mean, you you can't really get, more into it than that.
I could see some Satanist spins on it, but yeah.
Yeah, they could try, but
yeah,
we'd rebuke that immediately.
yeah. It's if you come away listening to that song, you should probably go see somebody because you need help. So you actually brought it up. I didn't have to. So that's your latest single, and
Yep.
you have. I hate to do this, but it's almost blackened deathcore. And for those who don't know, that's kind of like a super subgenre, because deathcore is like a subgenre of a subgenre of a subgenre. So it's almost like a Russian doll of music at this point. And so blackened deathcore is combining like more orchestral black metal with the deathcore aspect. And I was actually listening to it just before we to kind of pump myself up for this conversation. And wow, that is a beautiful song.
Thank you.
The arrangement, was it Sean? Oh, what did I see here? Sean Landman, was he the composer for the mixing?
No, he was one of. So we had a contest, and we had allowed whoever won the contest to feature vocals on our song. So he had won a contest, and he featured vocals. We had got the guitar player from the band Burning the Masses to feature a guitar solo. Brandon was the one who wrote the song, and then I went and arranged it into what it was. Me and our producer, Randy Pascarella, we go in and we'll sit down. We'll be like, all right, what kind of synth do we want? What kind of strings? What kind of piano? Is there any breakdowns that we want to add and stuff like that? Because Brandon, he is his style of playing when he writes metal is very death metal. So we're just like, all right, well then, to make it sound more like Diamonds to Dust, let's add the orchestra element, and stuff like that. For the most part, we don't even go for a particular sound. We just write, and we're just like, all right, sounds good, and then we'll just be like, all right, that sounds like Diamonds to Dust. Sounds like Diamonds to Dust. Let's put it out there.
I love that approach, because I see right now in the main deathcore scene, there's two bands who have basically been changing the way they sound, Enterprise to Earth and Currents, and people are like, oh, they're not deathcore, they're not blah blah blah. So a lot of the snobs really don't like that, but I mean, Enterprise Earth was basically doing, there's a subgenre of specific lyrics basically about alien abduction and apocalypse. and so they went away from that, and then they've kind of transitioned to like this Hellion group, and now that they had some different albums, and now they're kind of the Death's anthology has come kind of different sort of new genre of metal. Same thing with Current. So I like the approach, because then you don't have to be like, oh, we got to make sure we play industrial all the time. I think it just opens up for the styles, because then you don't have your people like in the comments like, why would you do this?
Oh, to be honest, even with that, we still do. I'd have to say that's one reason. Even though we are a deathcore band, I guess you could say, we will tell people, they're like, oh, what kind of deathcore band are you? I'm like, well, we like to say that we're just a metal band. At least we're trying to start saying that now, just because it won't pigeonhole us. Because if you listen from our first album till now, you'll notice we went from post-hardcore, metalcore, deathcore, and then the releases that's going to come out now is going to be kind of a mix of, that deathcore, metalcore feel. And, even, we had one fan who critiqued us and we appreciated it. He was just like, you guys had some thrash elements in the latest song, and then you guys had some phonic elements. You had this, you had that. I'm like, yeah, because we don't want to just be, even though it could be all encompassing under that one label, we want to be able to experiment, try new things. I know a lot of people are upset with Enterprise Earth because they added clean vocals. I'm like, clean vocals are cool. I haven't listened to them really. I'm not really a fan, but one of their newest songs, I'm just like, yo, this is sick. I'm like, I like the way the clean vocals are. But some people are like, no, it's not them. How dare you add those vocals? This is not how it's supposed to be. Like, oh, you can listen to the old stuff and it's still there.
Yeah, I'm pretty terrible at clean vocals myself. So my first song released from Pain is a country 2 deathcore song, and so the clean to do that, and so I'm having to like redo some of the stuff in my latest one that I'm working right now. I kind of set the cleans back as like almost like a backing chorus, kind of like old 50s style music where you just had like the quartet in the background, and I feel like that thematically just it's a little bit different. So yeah. But yeah, the second you put a clean line in it, deathcore snobs lose their minds.
Yeah, it can get pretty bad, but I take it all with a grain of salt. We get hit on all sides. We get hit with, oh, how can you be a Christian band with vocals like that? Then we get it, oh, the clean singing is uninteresting. Oh, here we go, another deathcore band that's doing vocal Olympics. Oh, they're nothing special. This, that, and the third. I'm just like, listen, man, that's your opinion. We appreciate your opinion. Thank you for listening. Try one of our other songs. You may like it. You may not. Let's move on. Just be respectful. That's all we ask. We're not here to, again, the music is to glorify God, speak on our experiences, and and to have fun with some of the other underlying messages. Like Christian, he likes to write about apocalyptic themes. I'm like, cool. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I wanted to look at I have your discography pulled up. Spotify is kind of weird where sometimes it shows you like how many singles or plays through. I mean, for somebody that people apparently don't like their music, it's kind of weird. You have almost a million, you have over nearly 600,000 views on like Corpus Christi. So it's kind of weird. It's like you're dropping the water, bud, because everyone else likes what we do.
And that's the thing, we're just like, hey, if if you don't like it, again, just move on. You know, you don't have to be rude. You know, we're not going to be disrespectful. But even if they are disrespectful, we take it with a grain of salt. Excuse me, because hey, you know what? Some people really have nothing better to do than to, find, you know. And a part of me was like that when I was younger too. Like my favorite band was Linkin Park, and when they changed, oh man, I could not let it go. I could not let it go. But as I got older, then I'm just like, all right, it's cool. They want to do what they want to do. Their first two albums are always there. And if I ever want to listen to them, listen to the first two albums. I don't have to listen to their new stuff.
Yeah, a lot of people had issues like Bring Me Horizon. And I think that's just because Ollie Sykes, that style of screaming, people thought you were literally screaming. And so you get these guys trying to do the band, blow their voices out. Earlier, before we started recording, talking about how you don't like to do, vocals because it hurts. There's now a science to actually how to do metal vocals. And a lot of people are going around teaching that. And I'm in a program with Chris Lipe, Elizabeth Zarhoff. Chris does like learn how to sing like Marilyn Manson. He had Blake Shelton on his programs. A little pricey, but you get lifetime access. Elizabeth Zarhoff is my charismatic voice, and she's a trained opera singer who has a degree in music, and she likes to meet singers, and she asks, can I shove a camera down your throat to see what your insides are doing while you vocalize? And so she's very scientific when she approaches it. And they had Will Ramos of Lorna Shore on, and it's just been a very, very interesting. It's cool because he's always kind of done that. And so for him to see like, oh, okay, I see what's going on with that. So kind of changing the sound. But yeah, Ollie Sykes, you can totally tell he blew his voice out. Or Miley Cyrus is an interesting one too, because she was doing a genre of music where you don't expect somebody's going to lose their voice, but that her voice is the way it is today because of, she was exerting too much constriction on there and just kind of.
Yeah, improper technique can always, whether it's, metal vocals or just, singing in general, if you have improper technique, it will always come back to haunt you. That's why, you're supposed to practice the technique, use your diaphragm. I don't know any of the techniques when it comes to screaming vocals, but singing, because I do the clean vocals, which, was by necessity initially, but now I love doing it. You gotta be able to practice it and do it and be able to do it to the best of your ability. That way you won't become like Ollie Sykes, who now he's an all-around vocalist, but initially they had to kind of change their style of music just because, they didn't want to kick him out the band, I believe. Don't crucify me, fans. I don't know the history of Bring Me the Horizon, but I believe they changed the style just so he can have less of those deathcore vocals on there, so he can keep going.
Yeah, and you can kind of see that with some of the other MySpace kind of era deathcore, metalcore bands where they're literally going out stage screaming, and you're like, "Oh, it's spit," and you're like, "Oh, that's actually blood." That's you're probably gonna see somebody, buddy. This is kind of crazy. And what's weird is how much the human body is like. It has to be a creature of habit, and it's so funny. You could be doing something for 30 years. You take one day off, and the very next day, your body's like, "We have never done this before. What are you doing?"
Yeah.
So
Yep.
it's kind of crazy. So we talked about listeners, navigation, kind of the trolls who are upset about music must be pure. Have you had any fans like come to you or mention at shows like how your music inspired them to have a better faith or helped them through particular times?
Yes, we definitely have. And, you know, it's a wonderful feeling to know that our music could inspire someone to, because I never thought we would actually ever get to that point. But to hear that someone says, hey, you guys inspired me to create my own Christian Deathcore project, or, inspired me to sing or pick up an instrument, it's very good, but at the end of the day, Christ is the one who made that possible. And we don't take that away from, our message. We tell people, I'm like, hey, listen, we appreciate you, God bless you, and all the things that you do. And, you just keep trugging on along. Just keep chugging along, man. And you guys, whoever it is, you guys will get there. We try to definitely encourage people to continue and to walk in faith, but we definitely get a lot of people, who definitely say that we inspire them, not like millions or anything, but we've had, more than a handful people come up to us, and it's a very, very happy feeling to know that we've actually helped somebody or inspired someone. Like, hey, I was going through a rough time, and we heard, I don't know, silence is also suicide, and it made me think of, wow, maybe I should speak up, or something of that nature. And I'm just like, awesome.
I know personally, as a fan for certain genres, people are like, how can you be improved by this? But it's like, there's a message, you can really get a message from some stuff. Or I know for myself, one of the songs that uh will always impact me is from a band Color Morale, and it was Strange Comfort. And I was at a really weird place in my life, and it meant something to me. And so like music can be transcendent in that aspect. And so I think there's something special when you combine a uh, a a faith-based, Christ-centered message with that, because you can truly impact somebody that's going through that, and to help.
Agreed. Agreed. Most definitely.
Um, and I think another thing is, with how much Babylonian music there is out there, so basically just worldly secular music, it's just kind of, we have enough of that. I don't, and honestly, I think those who are doing traditional Christian music are okay, but it's not palatable to the average person. Like K-Love is kind of cliche. It's like a Hallmark movie channel music. It's just,
Yeah.
some people like that. Some people like that, but for the vast majority of people, it's who are you going to listen to? This random artist on K-Love or the newest Kanye West? So I think it's really on Christians to make godly music that that is palatable, that people can listen to. Like, I've had your stuff come on in the gym, and it was it Corp yeah, one of the songs on not Corpus Christi, Manipulation by Design. I like that in the gym. That's a good gym song. So if anyone's needing a new gym song, go ahead and slap that on your playlist. It's a banger.
That song just recently for us blew up, so we're just like, hey, hot take for Manipulation by Design. The band wanted that to be our first release as we were writing our last album, and everybody was like, yo, we got to drop this song. And I'm like, nah, because I wasn't a fan of it. And I was just like, oh, well, they were right.
Oops.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Same thing with Corpus Christi. Everybody, we're like, oh, the song is good. The song is good. I'm like, everybody's surprised when they hear me. They're just like, I'm like, yeah, I don't like Corpus Christi. They're like, what? That's your best song. I'm like, yeah, I don't like Corpus Christi.
I think that just happens to all artists. Like
Mhm.
you can tell, like, especially like in the hip hop genre, you're like, wow, they really spent time on this. This is like the producer and artist song that they wanted to go. And it's like the random minute and 30-second song that's the one that blows up. And they're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and it did. And I'm not saying Corpus is bad by any means, or that we don't appreciate people listening to it, or we don't just appreciate it blowing up the way that it did. You know, the song that I wanted to blow up was called Adventure Time. I'm like, I really love that song, you know, but Corpus was the one that did it, and I was just like, and I like the song in the sense for what it is, but overall, when it comes to like the overall catalog of our music, everybody's like, yeah, that's probably one of your favorite songs. I'm like, nah. I'm like, Corpus is kind of at the bottom for me. And I kid you not, I wrote the song in 10 minutes.
uh,
It's like, I wrote it in 10 minutes. I'm like, it's one of those. So I don't know about Christian, how long it took him to write the vocals, the lyrics for the song, but the instruments, yeah, I wrote that in 10 minutes. I was just like, oh yeah, this sounds cool. Yeah, let's do this. Oh, this chorus is sick. We're in the studio, we're writing it, and then I'm just like, Brandon put the leads over. I'm just like, yo, that's awesome. And then it blows up. I'm just like, wow. Song that took us 10, 15 minutes to write, was the one that did it.
hey, music fans are picky. uh, anytime I think about music writing, I was really into Coheed and Cambria in high school. And
Mm-hmm.
the song Welcome Home was written by Claudio sitting in his kitchen eating a bowl, like a giant silver bowl of cereal. And he was just sitting
Mm-hmm.
on the ground, just playing with his guitar, eating cereal. So anytime I think of that, see that song, I think of cereal. It's just interesting how it's just interesting how stuff
Mm-hmm.
happens or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so from a secularist point of view, there's this idea that there's no true thing as like divine intervention or an
Mm-hmm.
aspect that there's a creator who would be interested in us, and it's a whole topic and debate. So when something happens, it's chalked up to coincidence, which
Mm-hmm.
statistically coincidence is just poorly explained mathematically. And years ago, I had a wonderful woman talk about how she used to write in a daily journal, and she called it the hand of the Lord. So anytime something just she couldn't explain happened, she wrote it in there. And what she
Mm-hmm.
noticed was how frequently the Lord was working in her life to assist others. And she
Mm-hmm.
noticed she even would have more profound experiences, just like randomly stopping by somebody and they just had the worst day in their life, but just because she thought about going to see them and having that. And so obviously you're doing this music, you're just kind of going through and you've talked about it. Has there been
Mm-hmm.
something where you could go, that was not us?
Um, Not gonna lie, I can't think of a particular incident, but um, or actually, I could say definitely the way Corpus Christi took off. Um, that I believe was definitely God, especially the section that blew up. It was um, the Latin the Latin verse, which was all about Christ. So the fact that the song that blew up that was about revelations, that and the section of the song that was particularly about Christ was the part that blew up. I'm like, well, that had to be God. There's no way to me to explain that. And I know a lot of other people will probably say, oh, it was right time. Deathcore was on the rise. It was just good songwriting. I'm like, no, good songwriting has always been around. We've had tons of other good songs. You say it's good timing, but God says he's always on time. He does things in his time. He's always on time. So if you want to say timing, then yes, then God did it in his time. And that's the reason why the song did what it did for us, and no reason outside of that. So I would say that, and just the way our, music is coming out, some of the people that we meet, I would say, is definitely just God intervening, in that aspect. Sorry, I can't get like many particular instances, but I do believe that he is, that he is guiding us.
Yeah, and then sometimes like some people don't want to kind of talk about that because it's like almost like you don't want to be a sign looker, you know what I mean? Like you're waiting for these things to happen. And that's just like the monkey brain in us. Like, ooh, shiny thing, and you don't want it to be a negative reinforcement. Like, am I doing this because I'm trying to be a good Christian, or am I doing this because I want to see something? So
Yeah.
I think having that internal silence, but humility to accept things as what is best for you is kind of the hardest thing about that. But yeah, yeah.
And we try, a lot of we haven't really gotten much flack for it, but the fact that I guess the biggest thing is we have like our guitar player Brandon. He's, I don't know, we use the term atheist because that's the best term to describe him, but he has other views. He's open. He's open to the fact of there being God, but he's kind of like, I need you to prove it and everything. He would have to be to explain it. I'm just giving you like a very, very short cliff note section of his ideology. And, at the same time, again, he's been in the band. He left the band, then he came back, and, he hasn't had a problem with it, and he supports us and everything we do. And, when people find out, you would think there'd be some backlash. They're like, how could you let an atheist, play guitar in the band? But no, we've never got that. And to me, that's the hand of God as well, because he's using him to help, using his talents that God has given him to help spread the Lord's message. So I look at it like, hey, this is awesome. And it's like none of us are renouncing our faith or anything like that just because he's an atheist. And maybe one day the Lord will bring him over. Maybe that's the reason why he's in the band. Or maybe he's just, again, like the Lord is just using his talents to help us to spread, the message. So, we never know.
And obviously we don't know if anybody's done that, but for anyone who wants to say that, I would remind them who is one of the very not first apostles Christ called, but after he started basically building his apostleship or apostasy rather, who did he go to? The tax collector. And for people who don't know, the way Romans did tax collecting was they didn't care how they got it. All they wanted was their taxes. And so often tax collectors would tax the people, collect the taxes, and how they would get their livelihood was taking a portion of that tax.
Mhm.
And so when Christ walked up to him, it would be comparable to like having going up to the IRS and having them join. You're like, whoa, you're the person who's taken my money and like I'm struggling
Mhm.
here and I can't pay rent or life's really hard. And you ask this person to come. So yeah, just because somebody like that or is in their state and he's not here to defend it. And I want to get into it, but there's a lot of
Mhm.
people who self-describe as atheists, but when you really talk about it, they're just kind of the agnostic in the aspect of they're open to a deity or something else beyond.
Yeah.
And that's their spiritual journey. You know, we all go different ways.
hmm And that's why I said, like as you said, he's not here to defend himself, and I don't want to put words in his mouth. So that's why I say, atheist is the word we use to describe him, but that doesn't actually really describe his ideology. He
Yeah.
would have to, explain how he goes about it and everything of that nature. So, but I always use that to bring up a point. God can use anyone. God can use, anyone to help, change the situation. You know, we needed we needed a very skilled guitar player, and you know, and here he came. So
Yeah, I think the way the world's going, um, we have to be open to those who want to be a good person. Yeah,
yeah, we gotta. The Bible calls us to love one another, because if we
exactly.
don't love one another, how could we love Him which we have not seen? I forget the verse in the
Hmm.
scripture, but we have to love one another. That doesn't mean love unjust things that people do, you know, but we are to love one another, to forgive one another, and to judge righteously. People think Christians aren't supposed to judge. I'm like, we are. We're supposed to judge righteously, but we must, take the plank out of our own eye first, make sure, we're doing what we're supposed to do first, and then, hey, shouldn't be doing that, kind of like, the right message, wrong person. If you're the wrong person saying the right message, people aren't going to listen to you, because it's like, hey, aren't you the guy who's currently robbing everyone? Why should we listen to you about not robbing people? Like, you know, so, something like that. But I do agree, we do have to love one another and be supportive of one another, but as we're doing righteous behavior, because I can love you, but tell you like, bro, you shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah, I pulled it up. The parable of the unmerciful servant in Matthew 18:21 through 22. Then Peter came up to Jesus and asked, Lord, how many times shall I forgive my brother or my sister who sins against me? Up to 7 times? And Jesus answered, I tell you not 7 times, but 7 times 7, 77 times.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and Judaism and some other cultures, 7 is a very holy number. Um,
Yes.
and so it's not specifically 77 times is how many times you forgive, but like he's driving home the point of 777. Like
Yeah.
basically you will forgive as God forgives you. Um,
Exactly.
which is
Yeah.
hard to do because sometimes people wrong us and it's very hard to forgive them. And I think that's actually the test sometimes is not dealing with being wronged, but forgiving the individual.
Yeah. And a lot of times, a lot of people forget that forgiveness is for you. So you forgave this person that did this thing to you. Now the matter is done. You and that person are now freed from that situation. And you can now continue to deal with that person, or you can continue to not deal with that person as well. Just because you forgive someone doesn't say you have to reconcile with them. If you are able to, then definitely. But if you cannot reconcile, you still forgive them, you still love them, but just go on your merry way.
I don't want to get into the details, but I had cast away from my personal circle some individuals, and
Mhm.
they say the hardest person to deal with is yourself, and it took a lot of self-respection and kind of like the spirit of the Lord working on me to loosen the
Mhm.
hardness of my heart to realize it's you being the dummy. And so I had to first forgive myself, and then I basically started to make amends. Um, and what I hadn't known was that they thought I was not talking to them because of a person, and that was never the case. But I didn't know, right? I didn't know that aspect. So sometimes when we don't forgive, we can even be the cause of more pain. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's a hard lesson to learn, and I think
Hmm.
uh, there's people they're going to be struggling with that their whole life. But that's
Yeah.
that's that's the cards we're dealt. We got to learn how to deal with it. So,
Hmm.
um, music production. So you kind of talked about that. I love doing it. I do it as a hobby. I'm not as talented as you guys. I think it's fun. I love learning stuff that's not like music is like a pool that goes into an
Hmm.
ocean. Um, and there's just so many aspects to explore. And what I think about deathcore is it's so fun because the music theory in deathcore is there is no music theory. And so it's just kind of its own thing where you can play traditional and do chords like pentatonic, and you do this chord progression and
Hmm.
this minor, or you just do your own thing and it still sounds good. It's different, and you could sing in pitch or non-pitch or in tone or not, or in key and not in key. And at the end of the day, if it sounds good, it sounds good. People don't really care. And I think that's kind of
Yep.
like a blues aspect that's carried into it. It's just like you're
Hmm.
just playing with the boys and you're having fun, or girls. I don't
Hmm.
want to, or them's. I don't want to. I don't
Like,
want to judge, but
yeah, definitely. That is one take we do use. We're just like, it sounds good, so we're leaving it. And then there's aspects where just like, all right, we got to make this sound like a more cohesive song, you know. But overall, we're like, yeah, it sounds good. Throw it out there. See what happens. Nobody likes it. I'm like, all right, we won't do that again. Everybody likes it. We might do that again. We'll see what happens. You know, we definitely were of the mindset originally. We were just like, all right, we had to follow a certain formula so we could get to where we are, to the point where now we can say, all right, we can experiment, and our fans will keep rocking with us. Because when you're first starting out and stuff like that, you it's hard because you don't really have a fan base, or you don't want to lose the fan base you have. So you're kind of maybe doing what everybody else is doing until you get to a certain point where you're like, all right, I can put out the craziest song and I know our fan base will still be with us. They might not like it, but at least they'll still be with us. So that's one thing we feel at this point we can start, or we have been experimenting with some new things. So, you know, we're hoping that the music that we're going to be releasing every other month will definitely be liked, with some of the different elements that we're adding. Like I said, we had a thrash element in the Child of the King song. We got like kind of a jazzy one coming, and then a 2006 MySpace era song that we're trying to we're going to probably put out there, we'll see what happens with that. And, people like it. If it sounds good to them, I'm like, hey, maybe we'll do more of it. If not, I'm like, we still might do more of it, we might not. So we'll see what happens.
I love it. And obviously you guys are probably going into a studio unless you're doing home studio. So
definitely going. Randy Pascarella, we've been working with him for 10 years now.
Wow.
And, he's the one who makes us sound good. We go in there like, all right, we have this. Can you work with this? He's just like, yeah, I got you. And we'll sit down and we'll track and we'll record. And, he's a very, very, very patient man. Because, the stuff that we ask of him sometimes is not necessarily difficult, but, we're kind of perfectionists, which I think most artists are, so we'll sit down and be like, hey, my brother will say, that hi-hat, can you bring it down a little bit? He's like, or, that bass drop, it needs to start with a higher pitch and then end lower and stuff. There's some things that he has, like we have bass drops that are designated for us. Like he's got it to a particular sound that we wanted, and he's just like, all right, this is the Diamonds to Dust bass drop. Boom. And he just plugs it in because he's like, that's the sound that they want, or, just different things. Oh, this is the kick that they like. So I know to put this on every song unless they ask for something different, or sometimes he'll try a different mix and we'll just be like, yeah, that was awesome. He'll be like, all right, now I know that they also like this. I can add this into their mixes nowadays, so he is definitely the man. I definitely recommend people go to him. Randy Pascarella. Yeah.
That is awesome. I'm doing a lot of mixing courses. One of them is Nail the Mix, and I like Lorna Shore. I'm not trying to copy them, but I want to know how to do it. So like I'm doing the music aspect, doing the vocal lessons, and then Nail the Mix, you get session files from mainstream bands. And so the session file, for those who don't know, will basically have each instrument individually recorded. And so you have to go in and make it sound radio ready. And when I got it, I messaged the group. I was like, hey, is this just kind of standard? I see 70 files here. So my poor little FL Studio is like, it's just insane. There was 15 guitar leads. I'm just like, for the layering, and it's just like, there's just so many different ways that you can approach music and doing that and having all the samples. Or I did one misanthropic sorry, I can't say their name right now. It's a death metal band, but I got one of their session files, and while I was going through the lessons, they're like, we decided for some reason, because we couldn't plug the kick up to the drum set, that we just didn't record it that day. So we're using samples. Like, okay. So now I have to go in and individually put a dun, dun, and hope it sounds good and does well. So it's just, that's awesome that Randy has the secret sauce for Diamonds to Dust. I love it.
Yeah. And, I'm pretty sure he does that for, all his clientele and stuff like that. Once you're working with people for a number of years, you kind of just like, no, they're not going to like that. I'm not going to do it. Oh, they might be open to this. I'll do it, see what they say. If they don't like it, I got the backup ready.
Yeah, I in a lot of the mixing courses for mix engineers, it's kind of like you got to learn to be what is it? Mix was it the artist should record like they're trying to make an album. The mix engineer should mix like they're the artist, and the mastering engineer should master like they're selling it. So you just kind of get all this different approaches to it, just so you have something that sounds good. And I love the mix. Again, we talked about Child the King earlier, but you also have a music video. I know we're kind of running short on time here, but what was it like filming that?
To be honest, it's a lot of it was a lot of work. It was fun, don't get me wrong, but like the thing that a lot of people I don't think understands when it comes to making a music video or writing a song or whatever is that at least when it does, you have to treat it in all aspects like a business. So, um, for example, Melvin is the one who does a lot of our, he runs our shows. So down to our sound, for live and equipment and settings and everything like that. He's the one who makes us show ready, especially when it comes to choreographing stuff like that. So I say all of that to when we were in the music video, you know, um, he's directing us while we're filming. He's just like, Barry, you got to put more energy in this. Brandon, do this, that, and the third. Christian has always been animated, so he already has that live energy. So he just did his thing. But he's always like, listen, when people watch this music video, we don't want to, we want to look like this is a live show. We want people to see this and be like, man, if we go see them, this is what we're getting. Because if you compare this to the Corpus Christi video, you see a complete difference in energy. You see a difference in, certain scenes where people have criticized us on, in Corpus Christi. They're like, why is the guys just standing there? Why are they just, look like they're uninterested? This, that, and the third. And even though it's just clips that are just going by quickly due to editing, people do notice that. So in this video, we made sure we're just like, no, everybody's moving, even if it's just a little bit, Brandon can't move as much because he's playing, very riffy things. So, he kind of has to focus. But me, I'm playing bass. There's no reason, not saying bass can't be technical, but for that song, there is no reason why I shouldn't be moving and going crazy, So, I tell everybody, approach everything, have fun. Yes, definitely have fun, but you got to approach it like a business because at the end of the day, it is a music business. Your music is your product that you have to sell. If nobody's going to buy it, unless you're doing it as a hobby, you're not doing it to get anywhere, but most people are, so if you're going to do that, you got to release the best product possible. And so when we did the music video, it was fun, but it was a lot of work because we had to make sure everything was on point, even when it came down to the editing. There were certain scenes, hey, Randy, can you take that out because we don't, think, we're convicted about this scene that we did, maybe it was a movement, maybe it was a certain look that we did that people will be like, we're just like, even if us as the band is looking at this and we're just like, oh man, that is convicting me as a Christian that we shouldn't be doing that. But other people are probably going to have the same, revelation. So, it's just at the end of the day, it's just a lot of work.
And editing and doing that because I'm in Japan right now. I don't know if I said that, but I am doing a song about the persecution of Christians in Japan during the Edo period in the 1600s, and absolutely brutal. I feel called to do it, so I'm doing it, and so I'm storyboarding and doing it. And people think music is a hobby. If you want a cheap hobby, this is not it. This is not it. And then, like in your case, you guys are performing live shows. Okay, so now you need to have a really good soundboard. You need to have all the analog tools to do that. You got to run. You got the cables, and then you got to put all the stuff in there. Who was that? I just saw a post. Leviticus. Do you know Leviticus? They're another Christian band, and they got to Seattle, I think, and somebody threw a brick at their trailer.
Oh, wow.
And it just like, you could see the shape of the brick just went bonk. and like hit the plywood on the inside of the trailer. And it's like, it's a very expensive thing. And a lot of people, especially, you know, you don't have a giant studio, you don't have a giant label that's, you know, writing you a giant loan to hope you do a ton of money. Right. So it's all different. So yeah,
Yeah.
for midlife crisis folks, if you're looking for a cheap hobby, music is not it.
No. Unless you're literally just, recording in your room or basement and you're just doing it just to put it out there, just to put it out there. Trust me, it is very, very expensive. I think we spent $8,000 on just the studio recording and mixing, mastering alone last year for putting together the album and stuff like that. And that's also including writing future material, because it's not like we just go in for a month and just write an album or anything like that. We all have jobs. Most of us are law enforcement and whatnot. So, it's not like we can just take off, when we can. So we get to the studio when we can. That's another thing people don't understand. I'm like, this is time consuming. It's like, oh, we've had people like tell us, it was like, yo, you're taking too long for your next single. I'm like, bro, who are you?
The listener support is in the Spotify.
Like I'm like, we will get there. And like, trust me, it's like, we were supposed to drop an EP last December. This past December, we said winter. We thought we had everything good to go. My son was born. There goes my finances right there.
GG's.
Yeah. What you call it? A lot of us changed jobs. The stuff that we were recording. Some of the songs we got back. We're like, okay, we have to shoot a music video for it. Child of the King, the music video was shot, end of November. We weren't able to get everything ready, again, my son being born, until just recently. It takes so much time, and people are just like, well, you said you were dropping an EP. And I'm like, that's my fault. We shouldn't have said we were dropping anything. We thought we were going to be ready. We actually thought we were ready. We were not ready, so going forward, we're probably not even going to announce things until we have everything in our hands, and then we'll be like, hey, drop it an EP or an album or a new track, whatever. That way it won't give people high expectations.
As someone who works full time, is a graduate student part time, and has other things that they do, I have a 4-track EP that's been in the work for almost 2 years. So yeah, I'm not putting any timetables. It's going to come out when it comes out. But yeah, that's super awesome. Music video, everyone. And then it's just different aspect too. Cause then when you're doing the music, you kind of like, it's a audio performance, but there is that visual aspect of presentation. And also you can add another layer of storytelling in what's going on. So I really love it.
Yeah.
The background. Sorry, my cat, she just found something.
No, it's no problem.
But that's awesome. You guys said you're law enforcement. That's really dope. Appreciate that. Career field that doesn't get good light lately. So for good and bad reasons. So it's definitely a harder thing to do these days. So that's Hey, and if you guys get tired of Christian Deathcore, you could do like pro police stuff. You got consumer.
Oh yeah,
consumer
definitely.
Changes, so.
We'll probably be doing this. At least I will be doing this forever. This is something I've always wanted to do. I love doing it. And it is something that the Lord has blessed me with enough talent that I can do this. So, as long as He is willing to allow me to do this, I'm gonna keep going with it.
And I don't think a police department would have anything against you taking someone to the jail to lock up if you listen to your music on the way. Just you got free marketing.
So you never know. You never know. You never know. So,
but yeah, that's super fun. I appreciate your time. Also, if Brandon if you tell him like, hey, do you want to record your piece? I could edit that in if he just wants to record something, but it's up to him. Or he can come on and do another episode. I'm cool with that. So this has been super
I'll definitely
fun.
let him know. It probably wouldn't be anytime soon. Actually, you know what? Maybe it would be soon. I'll definitely let him know and see if he can come on, because he would definitely like to. Because he's done another podcast where he was the only one able to get on, and it was an interesting dynamic because being the quote unquote atheist of the band, it gave them a different, the podcast, a different perspective, on what it's like for him to be in a faith-based band and things of that nature. And it was a very cool interview too. So it just gave a different dynamic. So I think that would be cool. So I'll definitely let him know later today, or later tonight for you.
Stop. Sorry, she cat having a pet cat is like deciding to have an apex predator that's just child size just in the house all the time.
Good, man.
Yeah. But yeah, so you guys obviously have some stuff in the works. You're not going to give us a date for any of the stuff, but I'm guessing Child of the King is going to be very on par for what we should expect for your future stuff, and that's really awesome. If somebody wants to follow you, what do you like? Spotify, Bandcamp, SoundCloud, you on everything?
Definitely Spotify, Bandcamp, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube. We're on everything, or most things, So you could definitely follow us on there. Apple Music, whichever, Deezer, whichever one you prefer. All of our music is up there. Definitely follow us, subscribe, comment. We try to comment back to anyone who sends us a comment or sends us a message. We do our best. We don't always see every comment because sometimes there's days where they're just flooding in, and there's I'm not gonna lie, there's a lot that get overlooked, and then we'll see it like 6 months later, and we're just like, oh snap, we forgot to respond to this comment, and I'll respond 6 months later, or one of the other guys will respond 6-7 months later, and they're just, people are like, really, they responded to me this late? I'm like, hey, at least we got to you. Sorry, we overlooked it, but we do try to respond back to everybody. It doesn't always happen, but we do try our best.
As somebody who will forget they have yogurt because it's hiding behind the milk in the fridge, stuff happens. and if somebody says that Diamonds to Dust doesn't respond, how do you think I got him to come on? So just keep your snide comments to yourself. You just hate. But I love it. This has been a really fun episode. Appreciate your time. Get back to your kiddo and the family. And if anybody else wants to come on for the band, I can have you guys on and just get a different perspective. And I should be able to have this out soon, and I'll kick everything out to you. But any last words?
To everybody out there, just stay in faith. Remember, the Lord loves you, and that there is forgiveness. Just repent, and we got new music coming soon. We just got things in the work. It's going to take us a while, so just be as patient as you can with us, and we'll see whomever at the next show come and rage with us.
Let's do it. Let's headbang. Let's get out there, guys. All right. Have a great day, Barry.
You too, man. You stay blessed.
God bless.